starting with the president who authorized brutal policies that devastated entire Native American nations, to another who secretly expanded wars while misleading the public, to a leader whose decisions fueled some of the darkest chapters in American history. These are the most evil presidents in American history, and some of their actions were so ruthless and controversial that they still spark outrage decades later. Let's get you started with the one whose policies forced thousands of Native Americans from their homes. Andrew Jackson. Long before he ever entered the White House, Jackson had already built a reputation as a ruthless military commander on the American frontier. This guy was like the Grim Reaper during the First Seminole War. Well, when you think he cannot be more evil, the United States citizen elected him as their 7th president, and all hell broke loose. At first, it looks like he was one of those guys who would champion the era of modern democracy with his Jacksonian policy. But everything took a 360-degree horrible turn as he pushed for the Indian Removal Act in 1830. On paper, the policy claimed to relocate Native American tribes west of the Mississippi River so that American settlers could expand into their lands. But in reality, it was a forced expulsion of entire nations from their ancestral homes. The Cherokee, Choctaw, Creek, Chickasaw, and Seminole tribes were all targeted without mercy. Not only does this no-mercy law push thousands of these people out of their ancestral home, but these people were also rounded up and marched hundreds of miles westward under military guard. The journey became so horrible that it was known as the Trail of Tears. And the name wasn't an exaggeration. Between disease, freezing temperatures, and starvation, historians estimate that around 4,000 Cherokee alone died during the march. And just like that, Andrew Jackson made his mark and passed the mantle of evil to Martin Van Buren. Martin Van Buren. Instead of stopping what Andrew Jackson started, Martin Van Buren doubled down and pushed the policy forward with full force when he took office in 1837. Under his cruel administration, the forced relocation of the Cherokee reached its deadliest phase. The infamous Trail of Tears marches occurred largely during Van Buren's presidency. It was an apocalypse. Over 4,000 more Native Americans died as federal troops rounded up families, burned homes, and forced entire communities onto brutal relocation routes. And while Van Buren rarely used the fiery rhetoric of Andrew Jackson, his actions spoke just as loudly as his continued ethnic cleansing sparked the Second Seminole War. Under Van Buren's rule in 1837, the American economy was at an all-time low, with banks folding like cheap lawn chairs, and the average citizen was trading their life savings for a hope and a prayer. Now, common sense says the president should probably, do something. But Van Buren decided to treat the U.S. Treasury like a VIP lounge, locking the doors to save the government's money while the rest of the country starved, to the point he was nicknamed Martin Van Ruin. So while it seems Van Buren was coasting towards what looks like the ultimate most evil president in America leaderboard, Abraham Lincoln walks in. Abraham Lincoln. Now, this one might surprise people because Abraham Lincoln is often remembered as one of the greatest presidents in American history, the man who preserved the Union and abolished slavery. But even Lincoln made decisions that remain deeply controversial. In 1862, during the Dakota War in Minnesota, tensions between American settlers and the Dakota people exploded into horrific violence. Not only have these people been starved for food over the past years, but they have also had to deal with fake government promises. Now, some of them decided to take it too far and launched an attack on the nearby settlement, killing quite a few settlers. The news of these atrocities reached Lincoln, and just like that, without any due diligence, he launched random military strikes on the Dakota people with guns and bombs, rocking their homes like a World War II before the World War II. And to top it all off, Lincoln ordered that the U.S. military launch a manhunt for the fleeing Dakota warriors, leading to the eventual arrest of over 303 men. Now, during this time, civil rule was not that of a thing, so it ended up becoming all man for himself during the series of military trials for these men that only lasted a few minutes before they were condemned to death. The civil unrest that ensued after this trial led to a presidential pardon for some of them. So, on December 26, 1862, 38 out of the 303 Dakota men were executed on a massive scaffold in front of thousands of spectators. Nice one, sir. You've done well, Mr. President, but history still remembers that as the largest mass execution in American history. Just like we cannot get to the end of this conflict, Ulysses Grant decided to take America's conflicts with Native Americans to an entirely new level. Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses S. Grant administration oversaw some of the bloodiest years of the Indian Wars. Grant initially promoted what he called a peace policy toward Native Americans. The idea was simple: reduce violence and place reservations under civilian control rather than military authority. But the peace policy was thrown under the rug when gold was discovered in the Black Hills, a portion of land that had been guaranteed to the Lakota people by treaty. American settlers flooded into the region like a tide. Instead of enforcing the treaty, the government demanded that the Lakota sell the land. But they refused, and you guessed right. The land of the free sent in their army. The result was the Great Sioux War, a brutal conflict that included famous battles like Little Bighorn. The peace policy lasted about as long as a New Year's resolution. As soon as gold was spotted in the Black Hills, land the government had a pinky promised to the Lakota by treaty, Uncle Sam developed a sudden case of selective amnesia. Miners and settlers didn't just arrive. They flooded the region like a Black Friday sale at a Best Buy. But instead of honoring their own signature, the government tried to buy the Lakota out of their own backyard. So when the Lakota said no thanks, the Ulysses administration decided to come crashing down on them with the 7th Cavalry. It turns out the home of the brave only likes a fair fight until there's shiny yellow rocks involved. What followed was the Great Sioux War, a brutal showdown where the U.S. Army learned the hard way at the Little Bighorn that some no trespassing signs are written in blood. While the Indian Wars were brutal, the next president introduced something even darker: secret prisons and torture. George W. Bush. After the September 11th attacks in 2001, the United States launched what became known as the War on Terror. President George W. Bush ordered military operations in Afghanistan and later Iraq. But some of the most controversial decisions made during this time didn't happen on battlefields. They happened in the dark, away from the public eye. Under Bush's administration, the U.S. government authorized the CIA's Enhanced Interrogation Program. That phrase might sound harmless, just a discussion or probably a program to interview prisoners, but that couldn't be further from the truth. We're talking about interrogation tactics that experts don't just call enhanced. They call them torture. Take waterboarding. It's the ultimate glitch in the system that tricks your brain into thinking you're drowning while you're perfectly dry. It's basically the worst pool party in history, and nobody's invited. The details only get grimmer from there. Sleep deprivation, stress positions, and psychological mind games that make a horror movie look like a Disney flick. These weren't happening at your local precinct. These were black sites, off-the-grid shadow boxes where the rulebook didn't just get thrown out, it got shredded. Places like Guantanamo Bay became the ultimate legal no man's land, where you could be detained indefinitely without ever seeing a judge. It was the Hotel California of the War on Terror. You can check in anytime you like, but the Bill of Rights never actually leaves the lobby. But if torture programs sparked global outrage, the next American president oversaw something that devastated an entire country. Lyndon B. Johnson. After the Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1964, Lyndon Johnson received sweeping authority from Congress to escalate military operations in Southeast Asia. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of thousands of American troops were sent to Vietnam. Massive bombing campaigns were launched, boom, 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 and entire regions were sprayed with chemicals designed to eliminate plant life. The mission was to destroy the jungle cover used by enemy forces, but those chemicals also contaminated farmland and villages, and millions of innocent Vietnamese civilians were caught in the fiery storms of the war. The death toll was staggering, to say the least. By the time the conflict ended, millions of Vietnamese civilians had died, along with more than 58,000 American soldiers. And Johnson's presidency became forever tied to one of the most controversial wars in modern history. From the forced displacement and deaths of thousands of Native Americans to mass executions, brutal wars, and torture programs, these presidents made decisions that left lasting scars on countless lives. Their legacies serve as a reminder that even the most powerful leaders can shape history in ways that continue to spark outrage and debate for generations.